Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to crack on through our regular topic and then move on to, as usual, more in depth. I'm going to make you go first.
It's not because my name is first alphabetically, then.
No.
It's not because you've gone first every single other time.
Charlotte, what have you been talking about instead this week?
Yeah, that's right. Hit me where it hurts. My position, my order at the beginning of the podcast.
You're not even going to get to speak. There's not a recording. We're just going to get you to speak into a tin can, and then anyone that wants to listen to it just puts their ear over it and lifts the lid really quickly.
That's pretty much it. I'm just going to edit you, so you just go, "Hey, did you talk about that?" Just like the beginning snippets of every sentence, and then I'll just put in some sort of animal farm noises afterwards. It's like, "Hey, did you moo?"
All podcast co-hosts are equal, but some podcast co-hosts are more equal than others.
Exactly. Now off to the glue factory with you. So yeah, Charlotte, what have you been thinking this week?
What I was doing is thinking, well, I'm paying for Netflix. What have I recently watched on Netflix? Embarrassingly, the first thing that came up is Madeline, which I don't think either of you would know. It's an animated children's series about a French girl.
Oh yeah, I used to watch that.
I have no idea why I watched it. It was just there. And I was like, I'll have a look, shall I? It's not at all as good as I remember it, mostly because there's so much friggin' singing. They do not shut the hell up. I don't really understand. I was watching the first episode of it. That's as far as I got. And I managed to make it 21 minutes through a 23-minute episode and went, it's too much. I was so close. I fell at the last hurdle. But it was Christmas, and it was all going marvellously, and they were singing in their tiny French girl way about presents they were making for their parents. And, they were painting pictures and they were making cookies. And I'm there going, look, that's lovely. But, your parents don't want that. You know that they want, iPods. And for God's sake, guys, you're in France. That doesn't mean you're technologically inept. The best part of the episode is they have a friend. I'm going to say friend because I have no idea how to class this woman. It's kind of a convent school for young girls. And they're just wandering along the streets with their nun teacher. And then they come across a woman who, to all intents and purposes, looks really homeless.
Okay.
Fingerless gloves and everything. So clearly. And they're like, we bought you some croissants. And she's like, oh, that's lovely. And they're like, we're really sorry. They're not warm anymore. And she takes one out and she breaks it in half. And this little love heart puffs out of it. And she goes, no, your love kept them hot. And I was like,
Oh.
There's no part of me that didn't want to retch at that.
Okay, I may have watched it when I was a kid, but it's teaching children lies about life. I now wish I'd never watched it. Life is not that friendly, people. Learn it fast.
Croissants do not stay hot just because you want them to, all right? That's what microwaves were invented for, because your love is not enough.
Microwaves are powered by love, apparently.
Yeah, tracking back through everything else I've been watching on Netflix, I've been watching a lot of Coupling, which still stands the test of time. Written by Stephen Moffat, who is doing the new Doctor Who. He's actually funny in this, though, and I don't hate him for ruining and putting Matt Smith on things, so that's fine. That's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it, or if you just haven't seen it for a while.
It's very well known, either. Just seem to, pop up here and there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you tend to completely forget about until someone mentions it, and then everyone goes, do you remember the bit? Do you remember the bit? Do you remember the bit? And I would do a lot of quotes from it, but I can't do a passable Welsh accent, so I'll pass, because all the best bits are from Jeff. Jeff is fantastic.
Good. See that? Welsh people getting the credence and representation they deserve.
Yeah, but Richard Coyle, who plays him, isn't actually Welsh.
Racist! Misrepresentation! I know we have Welsh listeners, so I'm not going to whack out my best Welsh.
I know, are you worried you'll let them down? Or...
Yeah, I am, because I know for a start there are at least 4 people who listen to this podcast who can speak proper Welsh, which wouldn't be fair.
I don't necessarily think not being able to speak the language should be any barrier to doing a stereotypical impression, though. For 20 minutes, 24 minutes the other day, I was talking in an Irish accent. The depressing part of that was I was in my garden on my own. I would like to point out that I was really hilarious, though.
I'm sure you were.
Yes.
It ended up being like a full-on skit, and I was like, I really wish someone was here so that they would laugh at it. But then on the other hand, I'm standing in my garden speaking in an Irish accent.
By the way, speaking of bad accents, I happened to see Mission Impossible 3 recently, and there's a bit where Ethan Hunt goes to Italy, to the Vatican no less, and he is in disguise as an Italian man, and I swear to God he does the exact same hand motions that Peter Griffin does when he's having a loud argument in the middle of the street in Italian. It was hilarious. and impossible to take seriously.
Excellent.
Shall I move on to something else I watched?
Yeah, what else should we
Because I've got a list. I can see the thing here glaring out at me with only 2 stars. And this is bearing in mind that I've got a lot of Charmed, and that's all 5 stars, and Coupling is all 5 stars. And I even watched Wild Child and gave that 4 stars. But Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I'm afraid you did not make the cut. It's a cult classic for being awful, because really it is. You're just watching it going, good Lord above, where did you get the funding for it? That's honestly the thing that baffles me about it. I don't understand how they got someone to pay for this film. At what point do you go into a meeting with your finances and go, what we're going to do is wrap a lot of people up in candy floss, and that will melt them. We need some money for this. And they're like, okay, I see where we're going with this. I think, yeah, this is really good. What else have you got? And they're like, we're also going to trap a woman in a really big ball. And they're like, oh, yeah, I see that. And they're like, and we're going to have a big top from space. And at this point, you feel like someone in that room was drunk, and you're not entirely sure who. Possibly everyone.
Either that or Steven Spielberg was the silent partner.
Sometimes I think he has more money than he knows what to do with, so he's just like, well, do you want to make a terrible film? It'll make mine look better. Off you go. Yeah, I wasn't particularly impressed with that, and this is bearing in mind that I love B-movie horror films.
I think this is a sieve.
Who's the star?
No one! One of the people was in Weird Science. That was it.
I love that film! Oh, I shouldn't go off on a rant about the 80s, but 80s was like a golden age of cinema.
I know, it's got Robert Downey Jr. in, looking absolutely insane. You're like, this isn't the same person. You're not fit.
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't think he could grow facial hair properly back then, though.
Back in the 80s, there was a shortage. They had to lend it to all the heavy metal bands, so there wasn't enough to go around.
Yeah, they ran out after the 70s.
All those porn moustaches.
Oh, horrible.
You don't think people just grow those? Those need special cultivation. They need tools. Yeah.
I just now have a mental image of somewhere in Holland, a giant aquaponics bay of bushy Ron Jeremy moustaches just in like little pots, and someone's raking them with moustache feed. I don't know what that is.
I just had the same image, except the moustaches are in like cloning tanks, like in that Alien Resurrection.
One of them's still got a little bit of Ron Jeremy attached to them.
I'm getting a slightly more illegal, as though it's like growing dope under your bed when you're a student. I feel like the police are coming in going, what's this? And they're like, it's eyebrows. This isn't eyebrows. I can tell this isn't eyebrows. I'm like, all right, it's a moustache. I'm sorry. It's the first time.
It's for medicinal purposes. I have alopecia.
Where did you learn how to grow this? I learned from you, Dad. I found the video.
The final thing I want to talk about, I watched The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which is anime. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, it is very good. It made me sad, and then it made me sad again, and then it made me sad for a third time, by which point I was like, fucking finish already! It was like Lord of the Rings, if at the end of every single Lord of the Rings ending for Return of the King, you needed to weep for a bit into your pillow.
You mean you didn't cry when Bilbo looked like he was already dead?
By that point, again, I was just like, fuck off! Why didn't you end?
Remember the Shire, Mr. Fredo? Do you remember the taste of strawberries? I can't recall the taste of strawberries, Sam. That was me in the cinema, so it was really sad.
It is, but it's very good. It's not Grave of the Fireflies sad. It's just not as cheerful as I should have been watching at 2 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yes, but I don't think it's possible to create joy when you're doing a war film where everything around you is being bombed to shit.
True, but then you could also be John Woo directing Wind Talkers, and yeah, that film tried to be funny. Well, it didn't try to be funny. It was inadvertently funny by having Nicolas Cage have war flashbacks, and the camera just zooms into his eyes, and you hear explosions and gunfire, and it's like, Jesus, hit the trope on the head, why don't you?
It didn't take long for us to get to our first Nicolas Cage reference.
Is that you done, Charlotte?
Yeah, although now every time you say Wind Talkers, I think about a book that I do not remember what it was called, but it was something like that. Shit, what am I thinking of? No, actually, you can continue with the talking. I'll just try and find out out what it was. And then halfway through, I'll just say some words, and you'll be like, "Shut up."
If you can restrain from jumping into my mouth as I'm trying to talk to say them, then I'd appreciate it. Yeah, so going from one girl with a something and something, one girl doing something to another girl doing something. I watched the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the American remake of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It was long. There was a lot of sexual violence. I mean, I heard of this film when it was being made in Sweden, and it was like, oh, it's horrible. The book was originally apparently called Men Who Hate Women and things like that. So I wasn't expecting it to be, like You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Jigsaw. That's kind of what the film kind of descended into. But yeah, there's a lot of sexual violence. Daniel Craig was boring. Rooney Mara, who I can't say her name and I dislike her, she was aggressively bad looking, and I wasn't sure whether it was on purpose or not, but I found her difficult to watch because she does kind of look like the witch from Moomins.
She is supposed to be, though. I think the whole thing with the books and what comes across better in the original film is she is antisocial and she doesn't care what other people think about her. However, I felt like in the remake she was just there going, well, I've got my nose pierced and look, I'm angsty. Look, my eyebrows are turning down. Angsty. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. You say she's supposed to look like that. Well, that's fine. She's supposed to look like that. I still found it weird whether or not she was supposed to look like that or not. It was still off-putting and just distracting. And there were various...
Are we supposed to empathise with the character despite her looking deliberately off-putting then? Is that what the film is trying to do?
Well, you can't really not empathise with someone after what happens to her.
Yeah, good point.
Then her retaliation in the situation kind of made me lose all empathy for her, but that's just my way of seeing things. But anyway, to keep it short, Daniel Craig was meh, Rooney Mara was meh, Stellan Skarsgård got a bit nuts at one point. It was genuinely confusing trying to keep track of who they were talking about, and I'm usually quite hot on that sort of thing. But it was just a case of, I would ask Charlotte, who's that? Is that the one? That's not her. It's like trying to watch Poirot when you're not allowed to watch more than the 30 seconds before and after every advert break. That's literally how I was trying to muddle my way through. And we watched it. It took 2 hours and 20 minutes to get through, I'm pretty sure. And at the end of it, we was like, what happened? Where did Sunday go? Because half the day had disappeared. It's long. It's not bad. It's just long, and I wasn't really interested in it.
Why was Daniel Craig bad? Because I think he's usually a really good actor.
Well, you clearly haven't seen Tintin then, because he has the most unconvincing villainous voice in that.
I haven't seen it, but I'm still looking forward to it because it's Tintin.
Yeah, no, he was just, that sort of suave but suppressed violence he has in things like Bond films and Layer Cake, where he's got that Bond there where he can just suddenly explode into violence. In this, he gets sued, then he gets inquisitive, then he has sex, then he gets more inquisitive, then he nearly dies, and then the film ends. It's like he's just monotonous, I found, throughout the whole thing. There's not really, he doesn't get a chance to show any sort of expressions of emotion in any way because he's so emotionally removed from the situation, because there isn't any emotion in his relationships with anyone else who's going on, because he's doing a job. He's not emotionally involved in the situation until the very end of the film, in which he sort of gets emotionally involved in the situation, but he's so bland when he gets a chance to do it. It just wasn't very convincing, or so I thought anyway. So that's why I said he was meh.
Everything I've seen him in, it's like some point after Quantum of Solace, he was castrated, and he doesn't quite have the same edge now.
I think Quantum of Solace must have destroyed him, because him and the principal screenwriter had to write that film as it was being shot, because it was right during the writer's strike. So it's him and the director had to write it. So yeah, little known fact that Daniel Craig wrote half of that film that failed. But anyway,
sure he just kept looking at the title and crying and going, why couldn't we think of other words?
Apparently there's it's supposed to be a secret anagram for something, that it was just the nearest they could make, that all the letters mean something, but I don't know. That's just a rumor. So yeah,
that episode of Friends when Joey tries to write something special to the other characters, and he doesn't think his vocabulary is very good.
The one with the adoption paper.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thank you from the bottom.
Every single word, and it turns out like your large
aortic
heart-shaped pump or something like that.
It's from the very depths of my aortic, your aortic pump. Love, baby kangaroo. Bless him.
Well, that's what I think Quantum of Solace's title is like.
Indeed.
I'm looking at possible anagrams for it now. Aqua confuse malt.
That's definitely it.
What else?
I feel like
my brain is exploding.
I feel like this is going to be one of those things that I've completely misheard something or misread something, and we're going to start a Rob Schneider likes getting choked in the shower by Mexicans sort of style thing.
A calf mosque unto.
A calf musk, indeed.
No, mosque, like the big religious building.
Oh, right.
I think this. I found the one where it's got things which has anal in it. Anal cum quotes of. Oh, that film has subtext I did not know about.
Okay, so other things I saw this week. I watched the first 2.5 episodes of Once Upon a Time, the Jennifer Morrison and Robert Carlyle fantasy fairy tale-y thing. Bland. Avoid it. That's all I want to say on it, really. It was just bland. There wasn't a lot going on. Jennifer Morrison is very anything other than Jennifer Morrison. Robert Carlyle is just nuts, but he doesn't feature enough in the first couple of episodes to hold my attention. The rest of the characters are very two-dimensional. It's like they took the well-known fairy tale character and then took one of their associated character traits and then stuck them in a modern situation and were like, look, juxtaposition. And then it didn't really work. I.e., the Wicked Queen is in the modern day times, and she comes around and offers Snow White a bushel of apples. Just no.
Do you think it was bland because dealing with fairy tales, you've heard all the stories before?
No, I think it was bland because it was bland. If the characters have been in sort of described in a more interesting way, other than here is a city or a little town, where time has stopped since one of our kind left, and then she comes back and time starts, and the little boy running around looks like Elijah Butterface or whatever his name was from Hugo, who irritated me in that. Anyway, basically what I'm saying is in 3 episodes it failed to hook me.
I think the problem with the fairy tales they're choosing, they've clearly not read the same Angela Carter book I have, because there's an Inuit fairy tale where a woman turns her vagina into a sleigh. If they could have got Jennifer Morrison to do that, they probably would have needed CGI and may have been some motion capture that I don't want to contemplate. But if they could have got to do that, there's no way you could describe it as bland. That would be never before seen on TV and probably never again for good reason.
Exactly.
But it would at least be different.
Indeed, it would have been different. But yes, I would advise anybody who has any interest in not wasting an hour of their life to avoid it. But I can't speak for everyone. I have very specific tastes. The other thing that I would...
Sorry.
It's why sometimes he gets me to dress up as Karl Marx.
Oh my god, that's absolutely terrifying.
The other thing I was talking about, the other thing I'm going to talk about that I've seen this week, just briefly, just touch on the Scream series of films, because I watched the first 2 films, and I really should have started watching these ages ago. I really, really enjoyed, particularly the second one, more than the first, actually. I enjoyed the fact that coming into it, I was aware that it wasn't really to be taken all that seriously, though it's not a comedy. It's not a scary movie, but it's not, trying to be as straight as anything. It's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek. Wes Craven doing his scathing look at horror films. The fact that the audience knows and expects that all these tropes are going to happen, like the virgin dies the minute she has sex, the black guy dies first, no one ever says, I'll be back in a minute, and is back in a minute. Things like that. If you've watched enough horror films, they're going to happen. You see them happening. It makes you more involved because you're like, no, don't do that, because that always happens. And Rose McGowan. And then she dies. And I think that that was really, really good. The way that it was spun to involve the audience in that way was good. And I especially enjoyed watching them going, hey, that guy, for most of the films. Because Hey That Guy is one of my favourite games to play, and there are some ridiculous cameos in this series. Liev Schreiber, who people may well know from Salt and Wolverine X-Men Origins of late, is a reasonably main character in quite a few of them. Rose McGowan was in the first one, Sarah Michelle Gellar. The guy who played the main actor in Sliders, if anyone remembers that TV show, he's in it.
Amazing show.
Yes, it was.
Should never have been cancelled.
Timothy Oliphant is in it, which I was like, what the fuck? How did he have a career before Agent 47?
Sheldon's mum.
Sheldon's mum is in it. Sheldon Cooper's mum.
Hang on, why do you think Timothy Oliphant should have had a career after Agent 47?
Because that was a really reasonably good film. I liked it.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was awful. It was all kinds of bad.
Shove it for the time being, Mr. Colgan. In the most polite way, because we'll get onto that at another day. But yeah, it was really, really good, and I'm looking forward to watching the third and the fourth one. In the next coming days. A game. I'll just quickly mention a game, because I've only actually played half an hour of it so far. I played it before and finished it years ago, but I just bought it again, and it's a game called On the Rain-Slick Precipice of Darkness. I bought both of the Volume 1 and Volume 2 off Steam, £2.24, played half an hour of it, and I remember exactly why I loved it. It's a point-click adventure game where you fight robots called fruit fuckers who just want to have sex with oranges. And I'm not going to say any more, but it's just brilliant. So there's that. So Alex, now we can finally get around to you and talk about what you've been doing this week. And try not to say a million times.
I make no promises. I got a few films to talk about. First one...
You said
Shut up.
I thought we just said. I
know.
thought we'd agreed that we were just going to make farmyard noises every time he tried to say something. Is that not what we agreed earlier?
I'm too nervous to say anything now.
Excellent.
Are the farmyard noises coming?
You will never know.
May I suggest a donkey? That's the most irritating and sort of interrupting sort of sound. Anyway, I watched A Dangerous Method, which I had sort of a lot of anticipation for because that's right up my alley. Basically chronicles the relationship between the two psychologists, Carl Jung and Freud. And Keira Knightley has a very big role in it. She is Carl Jung's mistress. She has somewhat of a friendship relationship with Freud. And I was hoping the film was going to be all about the psychology and how these sort of two giants of the field developed their work. But although there was a little of that, it was
mostly about the spanking.
It was much more about the drama, yes, and there was also some spanking, surprisingly enough.
Oh God!
But who played Magneto in First Class?
Michael Fassbender.
Yes, I forgot his name. He's in everything at the moment, and
yes, him and Bryan Cranston are Captain Ubiquitous, both of them.
Yeah, but I think Michael Fassbender's kind of earned his place. He's a really good actor, and he proves it again in this film. But surprisingly enough, Keira Knightley was by far the best actress in that film. She was amazing. She starts off playing this woman who's supposedly crazy, and she has these amazing sort of huge tics and bodily sort of involuntary movements in her body, and she's sort of so covered in neuroses that she can't even control herself. And it was just so amazingly portrayed in the first 20 minutes, half an hour of the film. You're just immediately engrossed in her character. And even though like her the way she moves and the way she's sort of contorting her body looks quite violent and disgusting, it's this incredible empathy for her character. It just sort of gets created.
Yeah, I'm just on the IMDb page for this. I remember seeing the trailer for this and thinking it was going to be exceptionally good. Primarily because it's Viggo Mortensen, who has done nothing apart from... Remember that film, Alex, that he did when he didn't have a character name and he was on... It wasn't The Path. It was... do you remember what it was called?
No, I need more information.
It wasn't called The Path. It was like The Path. It was just him and a boy.
Oh. Very funny.
Yes. Yeah. But I was interested more the fact that it had Viggo Mortensen in it. Just because I haven't seen him in a while. But it did look good. Vincent Cassel or Cassel, however you say his name as well, who listeners may remember as being what's his name in Black Swan, the head of the ballet.
Oh, him. Yeah. He's a really good actor.
And yeah, I was looking forward to seeing him in that. And then of course Michael Fassbender, who man of roving accents because he is half German, half Irish, but he is very much on the upswing. The other thing that I'm looking forward to seeing him in is Shame, actually.
What was the man's name again? The one
Vincent Cassel.
Yeah. His character in A Dangerous Method. He's not in it for a great deal of the film, but his character is just complete vice. He sleeps with everyone. He sleeps with his patients. He's constantly like smoking and sniffing coke or whatever, and he just plays it beautifully. It was great.
His name is Otto Gross.
Yeah, although I was really looking forward to this film, it was still really good. Definitely give it a watch. But because it tried to do both the psychological aspect of it and keep the drama so it was appealing to everyone, it kind of it aimed right down the middle and missed both a bit, which is a bit of a disappointment. But it's still worth it. It's still good.
Good.
I also finally watched Transformers 3.
You mean Dark Side of the Moon?
That was the only one I liked.
Yeah, me
You
too.
liked it?
I thought it was the best of the three.
I thought it was the worst of the three.
Whispered in case Michael Bay hears.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael Bay's money is hunting me. It's just this ball of dollar bills just like floating at me like
the belly gonna get you advert.
Yeah.
Bay is gonna get you.
Yeah. The first of all, it's called Dark of the Moon, which is grammatically incorrect, which amazed me to start with.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that actually.
Secondly, you know how people look at Transformers films? Completely valid, of course. They're just like a visceral action thing. thing with no story. But there was even less effort put into the story in this one, by which I mean it was so riddled with these gaping, aching plot holes that it would just brought me right out of the film. Like I've got to put a blanket spoiler because I want to talk about the ending. So if you haven't seen Transformers 3 and care about it enough to not have it spoiled, then skip a bit. But there's a bit where the Autobots pretend to leave the planet and then they come back for a surprise attack. During that time, the Decepticons destroy the whole of Chicago. That's that's thousands, possibly even hundreds of thousands of lives lost just for the tactical advantage in one battle. Well done, Optimus Prime. You're really caring for the humans there.
That was actually a big problem I had with it. I did hate the first two films, so to be honest, me liking it came as a complete surprise to me. But then I was kind of going, wow, Optimus Prime, that's kind of dickish. I thought you were better than this. I thought you were like Mechanical Jesus, but this is not Mechanical Jesus. It wasn't. He was like, I'm going away. A lot of people will die. I will come back, because then you'll all realize how much you need. It's like the Transformers version of I'm gonna run away, Mum. I'm gonna run away. I'm totally gonna run away, and then you're gonna miss me, and then you go and hide behind a tree in the garden. Yeah. That's what Optimus Prime did, except for he hid in space for a little bit and then came back, and no one missed him.
There's something else. There's another problem with the story. I mean, they kind of had this problem since the first film, but it was never really a big deal until this film, when it becomes integral to the plot. They never really explain what happened to Cybertron and to what extent the planet is like a husk. It's always implied that there's nothing left or something like that. But Megatron is trying to bring Cybertron in orbit around Earth, because he seems to think he can revive Cybertron using Earth's resources or whatever. Now, he wants to rule it as a dictator, which makes him the bad guy. But if there's any possibility that Cybertron can be saved, why wouldn't Optimus Prime want that? All he has to do is defeat Megatron, and he can save his home planet. But Optimus Prime spends the whole of the last third of the film desperately trying to blow up the thing which is bringing Cybertron to Earth. So,
yeah, but that's the whole point. You have to sacrifice Earth in order to resurrect Cybertron.
Do you know, I have science problems with that, and I don't have science problems with much. Okay,
there are huge problems with bringing that planet close. Yeah,
it was there, and I was like, how is this not going to disrupt Earth's gravity? I don't know much about gravity. I know things fall down, and I only know that because I've been drunk too often. But surely putting something that big over there is going to do something bad. And everyone else is like, no, it's okay, because it was only half of it, and everyone knows that gravity doesn't apply to a half a sphere. It's got a flat side, so science doesn't apply. It just slides off.
Clearly, everyone was like, let's just suspend disbelief while Spock is a giant robot, shall we?
Well, there's one film in which Sentinel Prime says the pillars, the teleportation device, they transcend your laws of physics, as in like
loophole.
This is our MacGuffin for the film. Just go with it. But it was still annoying. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what Megatron was planning to do, because judging by the distance, I'm pretty sure the two planets would have collided.
Do you know what I thought the two worst parts of this film were?
Yes.
One, Ken Jeong. I love that guy.
I think that was weird.
He's really quite funny in Community and Hangover. He's not a Transformers actor. Didn't think that was necessary.
Yeah, over the top in that it was out of place.
And the whole huge homosexual subtext about him exchanging data with Sam was just...
Yeah, that was weird.
It was just unnecessary. And the other bit, which is a lot of people have picked up on this, is when Carly basically pep talks Megatron into fighting back by calling him a bitch. And he's like, do you know what you are? Sorry, she's Cockney. If anyone doesn't understand the accent, he's like, do you know what you are? You're his bitch. And then Megatron's like, blah! And then tries to fight Spock as a robot, which everyone knows doesn't work. I thought that was like, for crying out loud. There are some really, really, like, the plot is like a roller coaster. Sometimes it's like, this makes sense, and, we're building to something, and then, this might actually make sense. Oh, they're going to do that. And then, then you killed the only black guy, or then you introduced those two shitty little things in the second one, and suddenly they're in Egypt, or whatever, and it's just suddenly it just trips under its own momentum and dies.
Yeah.
And it's like,
do you know what I think Transformers is? It's like a toddler running with a gun. He'll get really fast, and then occasionally he'll shoot himself in the knee, and then another toddler will pick up the gun and start running and do the same thing, and it just...
You heard it here first. Michael Bay is an armed toddler.
Yeah, so some pretty major plot holes, but the worst thing I thought was the final scene in which so many people's childhoods were ruined, and even though Optimus Prime finally has the cojones to kill Megatron, he then has a short conversation with his mentor. Granted, he betrayed him, but his mentor then apologizes for betraying him, and Optimus then shoots his defenseless mentor in the back of the head while he screams the word "no, please don't kill me." I mean, he didn't say the words "please don't kill me," but it was pretty fucking dark. And Optimus is supposed to be sort of a beacon of morality, and they just undermined his entire character for all three films in the one final scene, which I thought was retarded.
Yes, indeed. I think if we can detract from being negative about it just for a smidgen.
I've just found out that the guy that voices Optimus Prime also voices Eeyore.
Yep.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I know. Now think of that film and imagine Eeyore is doing all that.
I'm imagining he's taking off his tail with the nail on the end of it, and he's swinging it around like a mace instead of a sword.
I actually imagine that, Optimus Prime has always been the beacon of hope and sportsmanship, and he is supposed to be a good character, out and out good. Whereas Eeyore has always been a bit of a misanthrope. I think that the actions in the third film of Optimus Prime were definitely directly influenced by Eeyore.
He must have had some sort of doppelganger crossover moment where he saw Eeyore in a mirror as his own reflection, and then touched the mirror, and then they sort of transformed into each other briefly.
I imagine what is that going to do to Winnie the Pooh?
Megatron starts stepping on trees all over the 100-acre wood, and hundreds of forest wildlife are just homeless.
He's also the guy you're talking about, the actor, is also the guy who's always voiced Optimus Prime.
Yeah,
in all of the animated stuff and games and things like that. I couldn't remember what its name was, but it's called Driller, and that's Soundwave's giant worm thing.
Yeah.
And it's apparently not a transformer, it's just a worm. But obviously on Cybertron, everything is made of metal and things like that. So it's just a wild creature.
It's Shockwave, is it, by the way, not Soundwave.
Shockwave, yeah, thank you, sorry.
Shockwave.
Yes.
Shockwave.
Yeah, foot version.
Right.
Are we talking worm like earthworm worm, or are we talking worm like threadworm worm?
No, we're talking like June worm.
Okay. I just wanted to check.
You remember it? It was the giant thing destroying the building.
I remember it. I just, I kind of didn't love the idea of a giant intestinal worm thrashing around on Earth.
The thing I didn't.
The Dune worms. I saw this picture. It's supposed to make fun of the Cthulhu mythos, and there's Cthulhu talking to all the other elder gods with a Dune worm hanging out of his mouth, and he's like, "I've just been on this random desert planet, and I found these sausages. Do you guys want some?"
But the spice. I thought that was pretty good, that bit. The one thing I didn't like about it, the bit I'm referring to, by the way, is when it rapes everything. But I didn't like the fact that suddenly Shockwave was like more powerful than anything ever. You're bringing in all these red shirts from Cybertron who just get wasted by even the Earth military, and then suddenly there's this one thing that can destroy an entire city nearly on its own. It just seemed like, why didn't you just call that thing down in the first place? Also, the fucking first film, when they took down Scorponok in the desert, they're like, we know what kills them now. It's Sabo rounds. Everybody loads Sabo rounds and every gun you got. Beginning of second film, we've got no weapons that can hurt it. It's like, what did you do? Lose the cheat? For fuck's sake. Sorry. Anyway, sorry, this is not supposed to be dissecting Transformers. Is you talking about what you're watching?
I finally got around to watching The Immortals.
Oh, joy.
Ross, you're going to love this, but I managed to spoil The Immortals for myself.
How?
I watched before I'd really heard what it was supposed to be about. I'd seen one trailer at the cinema and thought, "Oh, that looks good. That looks mildly like Clash of the Titans, only potentially better." And then I saw a YouTube video just titled "Immortals Fight Scene," and I thought, "Oh wow, it's another trailer." And I watched it, and I thought, oh my god, this is one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen. I must see this film, because, of course, the entire film's going to be like that.
Which fight scene was it?
Sorry?
Which fight scene was it? The one with the gods versus the Titans?
Yes, it turned out to be the entire climax of the film.
Excellent.
That was a bit silly. And, of course, the whole of the rest of the film wasn't like that, although it was still good. Yeah, Tarsem Singh is really good at making cinematic art. It's very different to sort of bland Hollywood blockbusters that just go for scale, sort of bigger explosions, but aren't necessarily more beautiful. They're just sort of bigger. Tarsem Singh is really good at making things beautiful beautiful for a reason. Like the final fight, you've got this amazing dichotomy between the gods and the titans, like in the costumes and the way they fight and their weapons, and he's so careful about everything. Like the scene where, what's his name? Is his name Theseus? I can't remember.
Yes, it's Theseus.
Yeah. He's trying to rile up the army to defend the gates, and they're all bashing their shields to sort of get pumped up, and they're sort of bashing it in time to the music.
Did you notice that one of the guys in the very front of the crowd, as he was bashing his shield, all the paint was coming off it?
Run out of money, maybe. There's not much I can say about the Immortals, because you already know that how much I like Tarsem Singh as a director, but it's a very good film that does some things to do with Greek myths right, and in my opinion better than things like Troy, because the gods were left out of Troy, and they're kind of important.
Awesome. Alex, is that you done for this week?
Yes.
Moving on. All right, well, let's talk about the trailer for film coming out called On the Road. Now, Charlotte, you suggested this, so would you like to go first?
For starters, I feel like someone else is going to have to pronounce Jack. I want to say Kerouac, but then there's a lot of vowels.
Kerouac.
And I feel like someone somewhere is going to kick up. Mostly, I think my sister, who has a Kerouac tattoo, is going to kick up and be like, that's not how you say it.
It's pronounced Kakolukia. Oh, no.
It's actually pronounced Smith. So it's based on Jack Smith's book On the Road, which is not related to The Road, which has got Viggo Mortensen in it. I think we may have mentioned it before once or twice.
Once or twice. I'm pretty sure.
Fuck you. Way to hell.
I know it's based on the novel. I have read the novel more than once. Basically, it's a road trip film in a book, and now they're making the road trip film in a book into a film, which works quite nicely.
Okay. I've gone a bit cross-eyed.
It's meta.
You've also sort of lowered my hopes a bit, because, you know, the reason why Scary Movie was such a bad film is it was the film equivalent of sausage with brains in it and God knows what else kinds of meat.
Have you read the book?
No, I haven't.
What's a book?
Have you seen Paper? Let's start at the basics.
The level of intellectual media we're consuming on this podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, indeed.
It's about poets from the Beat Generation of America. So it is effectively a road trip film, but it isn't the kind of teenage road trip where at the end one of them's going to get laid. They're going to get laid at multiple times throughout the film, and it's all going to be a little bit angsty and a little bit poetic, and there's probably going to be a lot of drugs and drinking whiskey.
But Tom Green's not in this one.
No, and according to the trailer, there's a hell of a lot of jazz.
Yes.
There will be baskets of jazz.
I do like jazz.
Jazz baskets.
This is why I'm kind of a little bit sketchy at the moment, because the book is following someone's journey throughout America and throughout this specific period in time, and I don't want it to turn into a road trip film. I'm watching it, and there's a part where Sam Riley, Kristen Stewart, and someone else are in a
Garrett
car
Hedlund.
where they're naked in the car. It just makes it seem a lot more light-hearted than I would have expected, which in one way is probably good, and then in another, it's got a fine line to tread between being entertaining and not being at all like the book.
Indeed. Well, as far as not being at all like the book goes, it is directed by Walter Salles, and the screenplay was adapted from the Jacques Kerouac book, Jose Riviera, both of which are the creative talent behind The Motorcycle Diaries. They come from the only film that they are famous for, and it even states so in the trailer, is The Motorcycle Diaries, a film about a road trip around a country and life lessons and stuff.
Then I think in that case, they're 100% for 100%.
Pretty much.
It's the only thing they've done, so you
They know
can't
their
really fault them
medium.
on that. They know their medium, but they've only had one thing in that medium.
Yes.
They're typecast themselves.
I don't know, because I haven't seen the Motorcycle Diaries, so I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad.
Very good, but third-party information, because I also haven't seen it. But
I heard it was very BBC 4, which is a reasonable way to describe it.
What, Michael Palin's doing it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I heard it was one of those films, that is interesting if you're interested in it beforehand, but don't expect to learn much. Sorry, don't expect to enjoy it much if you're not already interested in the life and times of Shay.
Yeah, that's what I do suspect about this, which is partly because it's Sam Riley, who is in the Ian Curtis biopic Control.
Yeah, I looked at his IMDb page and I was like, nope, do not know from anything.
Control is fantastic, but Control is only really fantastic if you're interested in Joy Division. So it's really interesting interesting to watch, but not, I wouldn't say in its own right as a film. It's good, but it's good because of who it's about.
Yeah.
The trailer comes across quite well. It manages to have a lot of things. It kind of gets it across, but I don't know, it doesn't seem to have much of the darker side of things in it, which is a lot of what the book is. Depression and dysentery and delirium and drinking. A lot of things beginning with D.
If I can, from watching the trailer, I started jotting down words just as things happens on the screen, and the list I got was music, laughing, a gun, crying, regret, and emotional music. And from the trailer, also I probably should include naked. This film generally seems, from having known nothing about it even before you said anything like that, the way I summed it up in my notes was apparently about a writer who somewhat enjoys life and writing. I'm not don't get me wrong, you've read the book, you know about the book, things like that, but from my perspective it just looked like here is a writer who did some writing, he went round and got some inspiration, he cried a bit, and I don't have any interest in seeing it from this trailer. But maybe it's just a bad trailer. I don't know. Alex, what did you think?
Seems to me like it's going to be a story about this guy's vices and excesses and how fun his life is and how quickly his life starts to deteriorate because of it, which is a relatively interesting topic for me for a film. So I think it didn't look half bad.
Cool. Does anyone got anything else to say on it?
Yes, Kristen Stewart gets naked in it. So
Did you say Charlotte burst into uncontrollable laughter right at the point you said, are you very happy about it?
Yes.
That'll be why she burst into uncontrollable laughter then.
Actually, to be fair, this trailer marks the first time that I've ever seen Kristen Stewart smile, or not quite smile, but do something approaching close to a smile. So, if nothing else, the film has that.
I think we're supposed to assume that she's feeling an emotion under that smile, but, given her track record, I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm all for the Kristen Stewart bashing and things like that, but bear in mind that probably 99% of that quote-unquote track record is funny junk memes.
I haven't seen her in any funny junk memes.
I look like
I've just seen her in trailers, clips of the film, photos of her at premieres for the film.
She does have
basically life in general.
She has a relaxed face. It just relaxes into position of just sort of like catatonic, non-emotional representation.
Films about excess for me are always have always been very hit or miss, but on the face of it, they always seem very interesting to me. So I always do my best to give them a try.
Are you being a vicarious drug addict, Alex?
Well, no, I've just been living in.
It's not vicarious if you're taking drugs while you're watching it.
I think I'm living vicariously through the films I watch, being raised in a middle-class bubble and remaining in it for my entire life.
My final point on this film, the only problem I really have with it, the trailer looks fine as a film. The only problem I have is that I don't want it to become too shallow, because it's about a writer, and the whole point of his writing is how he phrases things. So the voiceover in the trailer is one of his very famous quotes about the only people for me are the mad ones. The point of the book is the way that Kerouac phrases things, and it is very much in how he says things as opposed to what he says. So it's all very well saying, and then we went to a jazz bar and we drank something, but it's the way he writes it in the book that makes it special, that makes it readable, that makes it a classic. And I don't know how they're going to get that across in the film, unless they have that voiceover the entire time.
Okay, so you're basically saying that the film is barking up the wrong writer's life and that it shouldn't have been.
No, not necessarily, because it's a very event-packed life. He did a lot of things. There's a lot of things you can put in a film and have it as an event. I'm wary of the fact that I want to know how they're going to get across what he's trying to say in the book, in the film, and he says it in a very specific way. He says it's his own style is very distinctive, and I just want to know how they're going to get that across in the film, because in the trailer all they get that across is by quoting, which is a really bad way to do it throughout an entire film. Because
it's possible for them to get it across.
I'm hoping it is. We've all seen films that are emotionally involving, so I'm not going to say no. It's film. They've got to be flat 2D characters. You may as well have had sock puppets.
Oh my god, I'd love to see someone like Schindler's List done with sock puppets.
I'm pretty sure there's a Schindler's List in 30 Seconds Bunnies. Just gonna have a look. There isn't. There's quite a few of them.
But it's time to quiz me.
The quiz. First question. We talked about the girl with the dragon tattoo. In the 2011 version, Mikhail Blomkvist is played by Daniel Craig and Lisbeth Salander is played by Rooney Mara. In the original film, who were they played by?
Absolutely no idea. I knew nothing of the original film until about 3 months ago.
Is that the original film, the parody, or the parody of Bond films in general?
What?
Or is there was
girl with the dragon tattoo, Alex.
Oh, sorry. No, don't worry. It's because you mentioned Bond films. Suddenly I thought you were talking about Bond films.
No, I was just trying to pronounce Blomkvist. Really frigging hard. Like, just looking at it going blunt, blunt. Yeah.
That just completely derailed once it was in my brain.
I have absolute. I'm the one getting quizzed, butt out. The attention is on me, Alex. Me.
But do you know the answers?
No, I have absolutely no idea.
Question 2. We talked about the trailer for On the Road. The book was the defining novel of which generation? I'm not talking in terms of time period. I'm talking about
beat
specific.
poetry. You said something about beat poetry.
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
actually get a point.
Yay! Why don't I get 2?
You do get 2. But...
Thank you. I don't know when that generation is, though. By the look of the car, it was the 1940s to 50s.
Hey, how much do you reckon that the Scream franchise has grossed worldwide? All 4 of them.
In total?
Mm-hmm. According to Wikipedia. Source of all knowledge.
I'm going to guess 470 million.
No.
Okay. Is it even close?
No.
So I've got 2 points out of 6 so far. I say.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space was made in which year?
2001.
Oh, come on.
I had no idea.
Before we were born, let's go with that much.
I don't think they had the technology to create a film of that level of special effects before, like, 2008.
1986. 1986, I guess.
I'll give you 1 point for that.
Why?
Because it's close.
All right.
And I feel sorry for you.
Well, you've come up with these questions that I know nothing about, and none of this information, apart from the one I got right, was actually in the bit when you talked about them.
Did you not listen to the part where I quizzed Alex?
You didn't quiz Alex, you eviscerated him. He's got some Morgul blade stuck in him somewhere for one of the questions. It just won't heal.
It's got pop culture knowledge written in Mordor on the handle.
Okay, the final question, and the one that ties into the topic that we're about to talk about. Happy Gilmore, Click, and Underworld have what in common, and why do I hate them? You get 2 points because there's 2 things that link them.
Well, Adam Sandler's in 2 of them, and Kate Beckinsale's in 1 of them. I'm not sure if Kate Beckinsale is in the other 2 of them. See, the only thing
I'm going to give you the points for that.
Really?
Yeah, Adam Sandler is in Happy Gilmore and Click, and Kate Beckinsale is in Click and Underworld. I couldn't find one where, there was more than one, but that is why I hate them. It's those 2.
So yeah, what did I get? Let's go through the answers. What was the answer to number 1?
Mikhail Blomkvist was played by Michael Nyqvist, which is really close to the actual name of the character. So,
They're still not words.
No, I know. They're all Swedish. And then I have literally no idea how to pronounce this, so I'm going to take a shot in the dark. But Lisbeth Salander was played by Noomi Rapace.
Noomi. Oh, yeah. No, I know who she is. I know she is.
Noomi? I don't know.
No.
We're embarrassing ourselves.
Noomi.
Yes. Now shut up so I can move on.
Noomi dooby doo. Oh yeah, she's the one in Game of Shadows. That's the one.
Yeah, have you done?
Sorry.
You got the On the Road question, right? That was the Beat Generation. How much do you guess the Scream franchise has grossed worldwide? That's 600 million. 4th question, Killer Clowns from Outer Space was made in what year? It was made in 1988.
88, wow.
So you get 1 point for that, because it's close. And then finally, it was Happy Gilmore, Click, and Underworld have what in common, and why do I hate them? It was Adam Sandler and Kate Beckinsale. And that's going to tie on nicely to our next topic, which is prejudging films, not just based on how much I hate the actors in them, although that is the reason that I would never go within 500 yards of anything that even looks like Adam Sandler might have breathed near it.
Oh, good. We have stuff to talk about then.
So I think Alex wanted to go first.
Well, don't you think Kate Beckinsale was at least passable in Pearl Harbor?
No,
because I won't see Pearl Harbor because of Kate Beckinsale.
But don't tell me you don't think it was passable then, because you haven't seen it.
No, that's the thing. I'm not saying that I don't like the film she's in. I'm just saying I don't like her. But there are many other reasons I wouldn't go and see Pearl Harbor. I've seen half of it and got really bored.
It is a romantic comedy, which isn't...
No, genetically, it's just like, no, I need explosions. I'm a woman.
In it.
Yeah, it does.
God.
He's a pretty much starring role, actually.
As the Japanese Navy. Just lots of Ben Affleck's crashing into Kate Beckinsale.
I probably shouldn't belittle war in such a horrible scenario. It was a romantic drama.
Yes,
for all you sensitive people out there.
Speaking of Adam Sandler, if you don't like Adam Sandler, watch Funny People.
Why?
Because it's about how much of an asshole Adam Sandler is in real life.
I'm pretty sure they play characters in Funny... I haven't seen it, I don't know.
No, I went on a date with Haz to see that. It's like 2.5 hours long. It's not a comedy. comedy, it's a serious film with comedy elements in it. And if you view it as a comedy, then you'll be very disappointed. But
Yeah,
it's basically tracking Adam Sandler's career really accurately.
That was actually in stock whilst I was working at Blockbuster, and we basically got customers coming in on a pretty much daily basis saying this wasn't funny.
Yeah, it's not a
Considering
comedy. It's really not a comedy. It's got a lot of serious elements to it, and it's not a brilliant film, but it's certainly better than a lot of people gave it credence for. And I would suggest of every single Adam Sandler film ever made, it's the only one I would ever slightly recommend. To be honest, at this point, I'm seeing in my mind the trailers of the films that Adam Sandler's character, George Sanders, I think his name is, in Funny People did, and I'm getting them confused with actual films that Adam Sandler did.
To go back to the topic, Funny People, it's written and produced and directed by Judd Apatow.
Yep.
It's got Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen in it. That's a really good point for why we would prejudge it, because you'd be looking at it and you're going, well, clearly it's going to be hilarious. It's got these people in. You're going to assume that it's a comedy.
Oh yeah, and it's called Funny People, and it's written
Well, that too. That doesn't really help.
And it's written, as you say, written by the Apatows. It's the third of the 4 Apatow films. It's also got it's got Seth Rogen. It's got Eli Manning. No, Eli. No. Why am I saying Eli? The fat kid from Superbad, whose name I can't remember.
Can't help you.
God.
Jonah Hill.
Thank you. Yeah, it's got him in it. He's good in it. It's got that guy, the other guy in it, and things like that. Anyway, it's got Eric Banner in. Anyway, complete detraction. Yes, you are perfectly right. This is a brilliant film for discussing prejudice. If you judge it as a funny film, you're supposed to be laughing at, like all Adam Sandler films are. You're supposed to be laughing, but nobody really does. And then it is a disappointing film from that initial reception. But I realised fairly quickly on when I was watching it, the fact that he has terminal cancer probably means it's not going to be 100% lighthearted. It is just interesting. It's basically a tongue-in-cheek biopic of Adam Sandler's career. This is indeed a good film to analyse for that, because there are a few funny people in it. It's called Funny People, but then there's also Adam Sandler and cancer. So yeah, not a funny film, an entertaining film, because there's like that. It goes like serious, entertaining, mirthful, titter-worthy, and then like comedic, and then funny, and then Super Troopers at the end of the spectrum being the epitome of hilarity.
Yeah, Super Troopers is amazing. This is slightly off topic, but do you want to know?
Because that's our forte.
Yeah, it is, and we intend to stick to it. Ironically.
Oxymoronically.
Yeah. Did you ever
Third
see?
Interruption.
It's okay. Did you ever see Knocked Up, the one with Seth Rogen and that blonde chick? It's kind of contrary to what you were saying about Funny People, but I'm not usually a big fan of comedy films. They never seem to make me laugh, and therefore they have no purpose for me. But sometimes when they try to like have a sort of a side purpose to it as well, I can see the point there. And I happen to find Knocked Up really, really good. I just seem to handle the sort of really dicey topic of unplanned pregnancy really well, and I actually genuinely got quite emotional in the film as well.
Did Alex have a feel?
Yes, I didn't order this feel, but it was still appreciated. I don't know, maybe I'm just talking out of blissful ignorance, but I would still recommend Knocked Up.
Yes.
It was also quite funny as well.
So we're talking about Adam Sandler just now. We were saying that I think we can all agree his comedy is not to our tastes, and we would tend to pigeonhole him as being someone we would like to avoid in most films. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yes, strictly speaking, it's because he does the same film over and over and over again. And
Yes.
I haven't seen Funny People, but I am making the judgment that it's Adam Sandler. How very different can it be?
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, and that's why I say it's Funny People is the only film I would ever say, if you think Adam Sandler's awful, watch this film and you'll see he's genuinely not so bad. More so, the film seems to just take the piss out of him. That's almost why it's entertaining. But anyway, so talking about pigeonholing actors, has anybody got any actors that they think, whenever you see their name on a billboard or in a trailer, you instantly think, oh, and insert emotion here about that person?
Jason Statham.
I was also going to say Jason Statham, because I was going to say, you list all the films he's been in, like Crank and Transporter and things like that, and some of the more recent ones like Blitz and The Mechanic. They're all very much, I'm Gruff from London, gonna do some shooting, drive a car. You know what you're gonna get. He's a meat and potatoes actor, but he does it well.
The thing is, what's fantastic about that is I've never seen a Jason Statham film. I honestly couldn't tell you. But as soon as I see him, he's got that gritted jaw and he's got that look in his eyes, like he's gonna do the thing. He's got to move a thing from here to here, and there are some people in the middle who are pissed about this. But he's got a gun, and god damn it, he's gonna do it. And there's probably gonna be some sweating.
Yes.
And I know that's what his films are going to involve, just from trailers and clips, and even the sound of his name has that kind of hard man
Jason
sort of edge to it.
Yeah.
You know, I think I've seen a fair few Jason Statham films, and the only one I can think of where he doesn't play that action hero role is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
His name is made to be said over some big explosion in that voice. Jason Statham is doing something kick-ass.
See, I think with Statham, he's the top end of the action market, I would say. He's like, I consider him a hallmark of, this is going to be an action film, which is just synonymous with explosions, fairly mediocre story, some girl in less clothing than she would usually wear on that sort of weather day, probably Olga Kurylenko, and then him shooting some people. But it'll be okay to watch. It won't be amazing, it'll be okay.
I wouldn't necessarily...
That's what I judge all of his films to be.
I wouldn't necessarily say he's the high end of all action films, but he's probably a pretty good scale to aim for in today's action.
That's what I'm saying. Is he would be the 7 out of 10 sort of. If you I don't know what you would consider to be some of the best action films these days. I think action films tend to recently have slid into the mediocre. I mean, Steven Seagal's action films have always been mediocre to worse, but I think action films as a genre these days are sliding down. I can't really name anything that isn't an action comedy like that This Means War thing, or an action, I don't know, thriller like I think you could say Inception was, things like that. There isn't anything that's just like a pure Lethal Weapon or Transporter or things like that. They don't seem to be around anymore. But I think
they just fell out of popularity because people were sort of impressed that we could actually do this kind of thing in cinema when they first started coming out in like the 70s or whatever. So
I mean, they're remaking Sweeney at the moment with Plan B and Ray Winston, and I think that might start to. Well, that might be the sign of a kickstart of maybe a new action film sort of splurge. But I do think Statham of the, like, say, the last 20 years of action films, if it's got Statham in it, you can genuinely assume it's going to be an okay film. Except that one with Ray Liotta in it, which I think was called Revolver, which was gobshite awful.
Oh yeah, that was rubbish. It probably has a bit more to it, but it was damn near impossible to follow. And I have precious few films that I'm able to say that about.
Yeah.
Because like the editing, the technical side of films is up to a very high standard. But that was just like, it was impregnable. I had no idea what the damn thing was talking about.
I just remember something about Ray Liotta's feet, and that's about it. Of the more recent Jason Statham films, I would wholeheartedly recommend Blitz. It's pretty damn awesome. If you saw London Boulevard, the Keira Knightley, Colin Farrell film, 2011, that was good. That was reasonably good because it was like half gangster, half love story, and it had super hands in it. The same author wrote the book that Blitz is based on, which is a hard-hitting, I hate that phrase, it's almost as bad as hard-hitting and gritty and it's like a Jason Statham hunter cop killer, basically. And it's nice and explosive and lots of dirty stuff going on, and it's got that fit one from Fresh Meat on it as well. Did I
just
watch
realised
Fresh Meat?
No, but I've just realised I have seen a Jason Statham film.
Which
The
one?
Expendables.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Expendables. That's basically a film that's kind of not just pigeonholing one actor, it's like a whole coop full of them.
It is.
Every single person that you would associate with that kind of, we're going to shoot everything, with that kind of action genre is in it. Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Jet Li.
Okay, so that's Jason Statham done. I'm going to propose another one to be discussed. Sam Worthington.
Oh yes, my favourite John Everyman. I actually have kind of a soft spot for Sam Worthington because he's kind of endearing because he has no other quality other than being an Everyman. He's just sort of lovely. He's like the actor equivalent of a puppy. He's just sort of doesn't have any major faults, but no real use either. He's just sort of
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go through his history. The things that there aren't many, to be honest, but he has kind of slotted himself right into the heavy CG action epics. Terminator Salvation, Avatar.
He basically popped up in Avatar, didn't he? I mean, he probably had a career before that, but I didn't know about it.
His career before that was mostly background stuff, by the looks of things. He was in a couple of TV shows for a few episodes. but not much by the looks of it. Then again, these are things that I may not have seen. But the first thing I saw him in was Terminator Salvation, where he plays Marcus Wright. I can't remember who that character is. That's just how bad that film was.
He was, how sad is this? I'm on Wikipedia, but he was nominated for the Teen Choice Award for Best Fresh-Faced Male. That's like saying we don't care about your acting, but bless you, you do look like the boy next door. We're going to nominate you for an award for that. But the thing was, he's not even that outstanding that he got it. He's so boy next door and like a lovable puppy that he was considered for it, and yet someone else stood out more.
Oh, the poor bastard.
So he started off in Terminator Salvation, where he was Bland McBlanderson, and then he was Avatar. He was Avatar, you know. He wasn't Jake Sully. Then Clash of Titans 2010. Then some stuff I didn't care about. Then that awful film Texas Killing Fields. I haven't seen it. That's just another prejudice of mine.
Were any of the
Again,
stuff
horror
you didn't
films.
care about not generic CGI action roles?
Well, I don't know what Love and Distrust was. I don't know what The Debt was. I don't know what Last Night was, but I know what Call of Duty Black Ops was. And that was an awful pile of CGI bullshit.
Yeah, that may be a game, but we can count it under the exact same umbrella as those other films he was in.
Yeah, and then now he's in Man on a Ledge, which is probably the only one that isn't rammed full of CGI. And obviously then we have Wrath of the Titans.
I've just found a better award that he was nominated for than Fresh-Faced Male.
What?
For Call of Duty Black Ops, he was nominated by the Spike Video Game Awards for the best performance by a human male. I just don't understand why they have to specify that it was the best performance by a human male.
Oh, human.
That was the part that got me, not by a male, but by a human male. It's like somewhere there is a robot that's better than him.
So yeah, Sam Worthington, Bland of Blandson. He could be mayor of Blandtown, and we can just put Keanu Reeves in with him.
No, I like Keanu Reeves.
But he has one facial expression. He's the male version of Christian Stewart.
No, he isn't. He's a good actor.
He's done a wide variety of roles, but no, his face very rarely changes. And this is coming from someone who actually does like him.
Yeah, I like him as well.
Yes, he does. His face lights up when he smiles, I swear.
Is that when you buy him flowers and, his door open for him?
And when he holds me.
They are. Speaking of old people, let's go to the oldest of the old. Martin. I've said Martin 3 times, and all 3 times I didn't want to say it. Morgan Freeman. Martin Freeman is not God.
More than Freeman.
More than Freeman, yeah. I've pigeonholed Morgan Freeman to be in films which will be like, look at him, look at his cute little freckles, isn't he wonderful? And then it to be some epic, brilliant, in-depth story with incredible acting and well-directed and probably over 2 hours and genuinely worth my watch. And then Bruce Almighty happened.
I would say Morgan Freeman has been at least somewhat pigeonholed to a role.
Is it because he's black?
No.
It's because he's black, isn't he?
No, into a role in
racist.
which there's at least a small amount of narrating. He can still
does the voiceover.
But if there's narrating to do as well, then that's all the better. There was only like 1 paragraph of narration script for War of the Worlds, and he still got cast for that.
Yeah, Shawshank Redemption. It's like they had him doing a voiceover that wasn't really necessary because he's like, Andy Dufresne came to Shawshank in the summer of such and such. And we're like, well, we can see him arriving. We don't need this. And then at the end, it felt like they went, oh, you know what, bless him. He's done a really good job saying all the words. He's going to have a happy life with, who was it? Was it Tim Robbins?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to have a happy life with Tim Robbins on the beach with their boat and everything. And occasionally, Tim Robbins will just look wry and have that little half smile on his face and nod. And Morgan Freeman will say something. That's going to be the rest of their life.
Jesus, Morgan, we can see he's being raped. There's no need to rub it in.
Okay, I'm on Morgan Freeman's IMDb page because I'm just going to say he was the narrator in Conan the Barbarian as well. Oh
my God! Newfound respect for that already glorious film.
The 2011 Jason Momoa film.
Retracted.
Yeah, but then again, in the same year, he was also Dr. Cameron McCarthy in Dolphin Tale.
Okay.
Starring Harry Connick Jr. and Ashley Judd as a pair of dolphins, I assume. I'm not getting into that anymore. He's like 9th listed in the film. Anyway, so the fact of the matter is, he does all the things like, stuff. He's God. People always say, like, Liam Neeson has been a lion and a Jedi and all this sort of stuff. But come on, he's been...
I think Liam Neeson is typecast as a total boss. He's always always play some sort of badass.
Which is really bizarre because he's the last person in my head that I would ever assume. Like, he plays fucking Aslan.
Yeah.
And I just get bothered by that because when I see him in my head, he's got this kind of slightly hangdog expression and he doesn't look like he could save the world from anything. And yet he's there going, I am the son of God. He is effectively Narnian Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but this isn't right.
Black Jesus.
I know what you mean. Actually, he's kind of like that's sort of slightly aged, withered look to him. Doesn't look very impressive, and yet he's
Irish.
And yet, even when he plays Kinsey in the film Kinsey, he's like this overly geeky guy talking about sex education, and yet he plays it in this really sort of powerful, charismatic way. Somehow, he seems to.
Yes.
He's like the anti Christopher Walken. He plays everything really great.
Good for him.
One of the people I'd like to talk about being pigeonholed is Jim Carrey, partly because I just got bored of talking about Liam Neeson because every time I think about the Narnian films I grit my teeth. But I think he's quite an interesting one because he starts off like Adam Sandler and for a lot of the time I was like, oh yeah, he's in all those comedy films. He's really shit, like The Mask and all that kind of. Oh God, I cannot stand.
I really like Jim Carrey.
See, this is the thing. I hate the style of comedy that he does. So, like the early things, like Ace Ventura and The Mask, and all those things where he's
Dumb and
doing all the
Dumber.
voices. Oh my God!
Yeah.
And then he gets his face stuck to a lamppost because it's cold or something. I hated all of those. He's a weird one because it's like he's trying to break out now. Like we've kept him in a little cage of comedy and doing all the funny faces, and then he's like, I'm gonna go and do Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind now. Is that okay with you guys? I really like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I know that the Truman Show is kind of in between. Like it's got the comedy, but also it's supposed to be a bit more serious. I've also seen number 13.
23.
Number 23. I don't know.
That film was
Only
great.
See, I wasn't a fan of that, so I can kind of acknowledge that some of the stuff he's doing is some of it's good and some of it's not so good. But I kind of feel like every time I'm watching, I'm like, you're about to do a funny face now, aren't you? You're not going to enjoy this.
Yeah, there wasn't really much that I wanted to scratch my eyes out more after watching than him having sex in number 23. It wasn't great.
I can kind of see where all these opinions about Jim Carrey have come from, actually. I never really thought about it like that. I think it was because he always wanted to do drama, but he had a stand-up career before he was an actor. And then when he started acting, he was obviously best at comedy and did it too long and got accidentally typecast before he could break into drama. And so this is like a pretty good example.
Well, let's jump back into where he became famous. It was back in the early 90s. I'm looking at the IMDb page. I'm just going to scan up, pick out a few of the films that I've seen him in, and let's see if we can spot a pattern of him doing a stupid grin. Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Batman Forever, Ace Ventura 2, Cable Guy, Liar Liar. That's a big block of 3 years, and he did all those films in 3 years, and all of them, he's pretty much just playing Jim Carrey.
Yeah, but I think that was his break into the industry, like going up a list, as it were. So he had to sort of do what he could, what he was good at, as it were.
Yes. Then in 1998 he hit The Truman Show, which I really liked that film. I thought it was really good when I watched it back in the day. It may well not have aged as well because it was made in 1998, but I still thought it was pretty damn good. But then he
goes back down again. Me, Myself, and Irene is
just what I was going to
then
say.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Like he tried to rise above it and didn't.
He dropped back into his rut.
And Bruce Almighty, and then there's like a massive thing. How do you go from Bruce Almighty in 2003 to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in 2004? And there's no kind of in between.
I consider them on the same line because I thought they were awful.
Really, Eternal Sunshine?
I saw the first 20 minutes of it and I thought, this is just people staring wistfully at each other. I'm not going to watch this anymore. But I haven't given it a chance, so I will submit that.
I think
Lemony Snicket's was shit, though.
I like that too. I think it's because he actually really enjoys doing the comedy film. So
because after that, he's straight.
A lot of different things working against his typecasting stuff.
Yeah, I think he's just he is typecast by himself and by the industry. I think, because he is even when he does serious things, he just has a Rowan Atkinson-esque air about him that you think he's going to do something funny. I mean, whatever Rowan Atkinson's in, you just think he's going to be funny.
Or like Robin Williams.
He's never funny.
Yeah.
But he always does the voices, bless him. I'm watching Dead Poets Society earlier. I only got about halfway through and then I got bored and realised I had other things to do, but I just needed someone in the background while I was making my Bulbasaur costume. But he does the voices, and it doesn't matter how serious the film is, though. They will always find a bit where where they can wedge in a Robin Williams voice because he's bloody good at them.
Back to Jim Carrey, as we were saying, he does Eternal Sunshine and Lemony Snicket's, and I don't like them, but I can understand that they're good films. Fun with Dick and Jane, I thought was great fun. The remake of the 1960s TV show, I think. And then number 23 was just weird, but I did enjoy the film. Have you seen it, Alex? I know Charlotte said she had.
I have seen it, yeah. I enjoyed it, but only to a certain extent. I didn't think it was all that. I thought it was a poor man's Memento.
Yes. I've had this discussion with you before, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but the thing is, I actually genuinely like Jim Carrey overall as an actor in drama, but I can see why people don't like him because he doesn't always excel.
I mean, I think if you can imagine number 23 with a different actor, the only person who comes to mind, I'm not hammering a point, genuinely is Nicolas Cage. I think Nicolas Cage would have been somebody else someone who should have done that film because it doesn't really sit in my mind. I mean, the only thing I can think of that Jim Carrey has ever done that's been slightly creepy has been Cable Guy, and I've only seen the first half of that. But
I think that was just because of the way he acted, Cable. I didn't think it was intended to be a film that had a creepy vibe to it.
Is it not? I mean, as I say, I've only seen the first half of it, but is it not about somebody who basically can't take a hint?
Yeah, but I think at its heart it's supposed to be a comedy.
I suppose. IMDb does list it as a comedy drama, so yeah.
I think it lists it as a drama because it tries to make a bit of a social commentary with its point at the end. There has to be like a serious aspect to it. Yeah, I'm kind of glad we mentioned Robin Williams.
I sit and wait. Does an angel contemplate my fate?
Alex, are you holding up a lighter? Because I am.
And do that, I will stop.
I'm holding up a zipper that says peace on it.
Jesus.
Yeah, because Robin Williams' career seems to be the only other person that I can think of that is comparable to Jim Carrey's. Like, even in Good Morning Vietnam, which is mainly a drama film, the primary part of it is drama, but like about a 50-50 split is taken up with huge amounts of comedy.
What about Good Will Hunting?
Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't have entirely drama films, but like the majority of his films are comedy, and he seems to like occasionally make an attempt to break into drama rather than
like his foray into Aladdin.
That was definitely dramatic.
Yeah,
That really was.
I got really sad when he's like, sorry kid, and then just tries to destroy the palace.
Yeah.
I think it's really bizarre though, because Robin Williams, especially because Aladdin, massive film, especially for people from our generation. Everyone goes, oh yeah, he does like voicing kids film shit. I saw him. Have either of you ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant improv. He was on that, one of them, and his comedy, his stand-up comedy, actually very grown up. And I'm there going, oh, it's the voice of the genie. Who was the guy in Mrs. Doubtfire? What are you doing, Robin Williams? Why are you making that joke? Please stop.
Yeah, his stand-up
It's
is
really
incredibly
weird.
blue.
Well, I actually quite like that. It seems to fit his. I don't know. His sort of blue comedy seems to fit his demeanor and his type of voice. I think it's just that he happens to enjoy a role for a kids film that we've all associated him with that. And
yeah, I think, do you not maybe think because of how old we are and because of what we grew up watching that we've associated him with kids because we were watching the kids films he was doing? Because Dead Poets came out 2 years before Hook did, and I didn't know he was in Dead Poets for years, but I've always known he's been in Hook.
Yeah.
And then obviously he was in Aladdin, Mrs. Doubtfire, and things like that. I'm just scanning through Jumanji, Jack.
Mrs. Doubtfire is a really good film. I watched it again recently, and I think people sort of sweep it under the carpet because it's quite old, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Really funny, really intelligent as well.
Has anybody got any more pigeonholed actors or actresses?
Are we agreed that it's like entirely limiting to be a typecast actor? No?
Look at Steven Seagal. The chubby ninja has done hundreds of films, and he plays the same bloody character.
From the audience perspective, I can't see any positive thing. The only good reason I came up with was from the marketing side, because if the actor is on board with the typecasting, then they choose films in a way typecasting themselves so that they become like an advertising symbol. Like Will Ferrell, I know exactly what the film to expect if I see him advertised as the main character in it.
I know to burn anyone I know who goes to see it.
Yeah. Every time I see the advert for it, I consider stabbing my eyes.
At some point, we're going to have to talk about Casamit Di Padre, but we'll leave that for a later episode.
That's some some kind of Spanish ritual where we call him from the dead?
No, that's the Will Ferrell and I think Judd Apatow co-created this film. It's a comedy, tongue-in-cheek piss take of telenovelas, which are Hispanic soaps in America, and there's like even worse than EastEnders, like the most basic, predictable version of EastEnders sort of thing. And he's made an entire piss take film, which he speaks Spanish throughout the entire film, having not spoken Spanish beforehand. It's a parody of things that nobody watches. Like the American-going audience doesn't watch telenovelas, so he's effectively made a parody of something nobody knows about, so it just looks like a shit film.
Oh dear.
Robin Williams, his middle name is McLaurin, McLaurim, McLaurin.
Robin Williams of the clan McLaren.
There can be only one. You were saying something about typecast people.
Yeah, sorry. I forgot about this. I've thought of another beneficial reason for typecasting, but it can sometimes backfire on itself. So ultimately, there's still a lot more negative reasons for typecasting. Basically, if you see an advert for a film with a character who you know because of a typecast.
A character or an actor?
A character.
Okay, yeah.
Because if they're typecast, they play the same character.
Yes, I understand.
So basically, that whole section of the film involving that character there's no room for explanation there. You already know what's going to happen. But what it does do is make you comfortable within the film because you already know, and there's a character there that you like and that you want to see. So, like, for example, I saw the trailer for Bring It On, that cheerleading film.
Kirsten Dunst in tiny shorts.
Yeah, that was one sort of incentive, but there were few far between. And then I saw the actress who played Faith in Buffy. I can't remember her name, unfortunately.
Liza Dushku.
Oh, thank you.
I say doucheku because it's funnier.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and that I saw she's. I don't think she's entirely typecast, but like definitely more often than not, she plays the same character that she played in Buffy.
The rebel goth girl.
Yeah,
She's
goth.
got a piercing.
Exactly.
And dark
Crazy
hair
shit.
and eyeliner. From the trailer, I saw that she was playing the same character as she played in Buffy, which made me somehow more want to see Bring It On more, even though there wasn't very much within within.
Are you saying she's like a late 90s Michelle Rodriguez?
Sort of, yeah. Actually.
Michelle Rodriguez, who's like, I'm Hispanic, I wear tank tops, I've got a gun, don't you fuck with me, in every single film.
Yeah, although
including that short they did for Saturday Night Live where she pillow fights.
Oh yeah. Thing is, you kind of have to hand it to Michelle Rodriguez. I'll finish my point in a sec. You kind of have to hand it to Michelle Rodriguez because she seems to have made an entire career out of typecasting. I've never seen her in a role where she's not the same character as she always is, and I've seen quite a few films with her in, and she must have something in her employment contract which ensures that she's going to be able to wear a tank top, because I've never seen her without one on.
I think she got into her first role and she clearly walked into the audition and went, look guys, do you know what, I'm going for serious roles, which means I'm not going to wear makeup and I'm going to be tough, because those are the kind of Oscar roles that, you know, that's what's going to win me awards as a woman. I need to be tough. And then they took her at her word and they were like, okay, you know what, fine, you rock out there with no makeup, we'll put some dirt on you, we'll give you a tank top. Unfortunately, she wasn't in films where it's kind of where that's going to get her an Oscar. She's just now typecast in being a tough woman.
I would argue that the original strong independent female character in all films was Ripley.
Well, yeah.
Ooh.
That's clearly what she was aiming at. Wasn't she in one of the Alien films?
Michelle Rodriguez?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, she was. Oh no, sorry, that was another Hispanic actress that looked exactly the same as Michelle Rodriguez.
Racist alarm. Yeah, but Al, think about it. 1977, Alien was released.
Yeah.
I can't think of any strong female lead roles.
Do you think she was the original? Is that what?
That's what I'm proposing in modern cinema, at least.
That's awesome. I think you might be right, and that is goddamn bitching if it's the case, because like Ripley is like the ultimate success story for the gruff female heroine, really.
Yeah, exactly. And she looks damn good in those tiny white panties.
Yeah.
She was supposed to be a man. That's why she's called. It was Ripley. It was going to be a man called Ripley.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until she actually came in and kind of auditioned for it. And they were like, actually, that might work. That's never done before. So it was never intended to be some sort of feminist statement. It was supposed to be a man. But I think that's slightly, off topic and possibly something we could use for an entire podcast.
Did the feminists jump on it at all?
I don't know. I think they were too busy
Probably.
picking their bras.
This leads us on to another little section about prejudging films, which would be to do with how trailers are composed and shot, and things that we all see in trailers these days which we use to form our opinions. So if I I get the ball rolling, I would say trailers with very fast cutting is a way of trying to tell everybody that there's action, things are happening, because look at all the stuff. Vis-a-vis the recent full-length Prometheus trailer, where it was scene, 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 scene. I'm having a stroke now. Scene, scene. And then what appeared to be just a beefed-up version of Isaac Hayes from the Dead Space games wandering around punching people. So what other sort of, I don't know, you can call them trailer tropes, I say, do we think there are that inform us in a very, very simplistic way that, give us some idea about the film?
I think mine are best with horror films. You can tell what kind of horror film it's going to be because there'll be the trailers, there'll either be someone in a mask or there'll be that kind of, there's the flickering lights and then there's the sudden silence and they use it as a trope. But I can't think of any kind of people that get typecast into those trailers and it's hard to make a trailer without falling into cliche, I imagine. So
yeah,
if you're in a cinema and for 90% of the people that go to a cinema and they watch a trailer, you're going to want to be able to put it in a little box and go, do I want to watch it? So you're going to want to say, okay, it's got this in it and this in it and this in it, so it's going to be a horror film. It's going to be the kind of horror film I like, so yes, I want to see it. Or you want to say, oh no, it's got, say, Jennifer Aniston and it's got a cake making class, it's clearly going to be a rom-com, I don't want to see it. You need to be able to put it in one of your little boxes and say, this is whether I want to see it or not. That's the point of trailers, is to make you want to see it. And they can't aim towards every single person. They can't go, these are the most fantastic parts of film, you should all want to see it. They have to aim towards a specific market, and it's going to be the market of people who are already interested in that kind of film.
Yeah.
So, Jason Statham films, they're going to be about the action.
Yes.
And they're gonna beef it up with some explosions, they're going to
Some
put all those things
slow-mo
in.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Something that always irritates me in trailers is music, because music is sort of really does set the tone of the trailer and things like that. If we think, use a Prometheus trailer again, there's a lot of sort of like mwah noises at the beginning of it, and then it goes mwah again, and it's like, this is sci-fi, mwah, and then the horror bit starts, it's like dun 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 dun. So there's this sort of like pounding music, and it's like, oh, it's an epic, things like that, and there's drums, and taiko drumming is so popular, and everybody loves taiko drumming. So yeah, so you've got sort of like thumping music, and I get even more pissed off in like films that are supposed to be inspiring or like detachment. We watched this one. This is the one about a substitute teacher who drifts from classroom to classroom, finds a connection to the students and teachers during his last assignment. That's the IMDb thing of it. And basically, he makes friends with this girl and basically becomes his like relationship thing happens. I haven't seen it. But anyway, the point is, in the trailer, there's this music that's like got that piano chord that goes like dun 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 dun, and you're like, oh, I feel so much for them, and it's just like, oh, I react negatively to emotional like suggestion, because if I figure out it's emotional suggestion, I'm like, stop trying to fuck with my emotions, you, and instantly become angry at them. And I find that the Dear John trailer as well, which used Set Fire to the Third Bar by Snow Patrol and Martha Wainwright, that's got the sort of sound that I'm talking about. That sort of insistent, don't you care about these people sound. For trailers that use that sound, I always judge badly, whatever the film is. That was my rant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's how it works. They're going to play the music that is going to draw some people in.
Yeah.
Like, the only good thing about Dear John was Set the Fire to the Third Bar, and that wasn't even in the actual film, it was just in the trailer.
Yeah.
It makes one of the few instances where that 3-minute segment would probably, you could still have watched it, got all the storyline, and it would actually be better than the entire film.
The only thing that film benefited me for is it actually educated me as what a Dear John letter actually is, because I didn't realise it was a thing until I tried to figure out what that film was titled for. But, yeah.
Is he not called John in it?
I was thinking, is he or isn't he? I can't be bothered. It's Channing Tatum, so no one cares.
Yeah.
Unlikely, because the name of the person is irrelevant to the letter being a Dear John letter.
That being the
I know, I just didn't imagine that the film was...
One of the other...
No, he's called John Tyree in it. Come on, the film couldn't make that kind of connection. It had to be called Dear John as well. Maybe it was trying to imply that this was the first ever letter and that it went on to become like a Forces meme.
The Adjustment Bureau, the 2011 film, adapted from a Philip K. Dick book, as all good films are. And it has Matt Damon in it, and it was advertised as Bourne meets Inception. And I was just like, blow it out your arse, because the film is nothing like that.
Or it'll be like the same kind of thing. They'll be like, it's like Bring It On with guns. They'll just add something else.
Bring it on.
Or it would have been immeasurably improved. Actually, no, I love that film, so it's not just because of Kirsten Dunst in Short Skirt. Good film.
Yeah, I may be losing a substantial amount of man points when I say this, but Bring It On wasn't actually half bad.
Well, I watched the trailer for Street Dance 3D or whatever it was last time I was at the cinema, and I was like, holy shit, those kids can dance. I was like, how much of this is animation? Apparently none of it. Wow. Still not going to see it. I respect anyone who can do something that I can't, so whatever skill it is.
There were two sort of sections to a trailer I was able to think of. The first one's kind of a passive part of the trailer, because all it does is gain the audience for the film, because it will just tell you things like this is for a franchise that you know, like the Avengers or a superhero film, or there'll be a particular type of plot or a particular type of character or a particular style that you already know and that appeals to a particular bunch of people. And it's always sort of exaggerated within the trailer so that it deters people who are just not going to like the film and attracts people who have even a mild interest in that type of thing. So the first thing, your first impressions are basically irrelevant to the film, because the only reason they're in the trailer at all is to farm your interest. The second part of the trailer is more active, because it shows you the new side of the film. Maybe it's like a new piece of content or thematic style or new character. I actually subscribe to the idea that there's only like 7 unique storylines possible, but only to a certain extent, because I believe it's possible to create an infinite number of stories which are interesting.
Yeah, we discussed this in the first half.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I'm kind of linking without that.
So are you saying that like the first half of the trailer is basically there to make you aware that there is a film and it does exist, and then the second half is supposed to be the half that pulls you in and says this is why this film is better than other films that are sort of like it?
Yeah, it's just sort of farming audience, really. But it's in the second part of it, in which people's first impressions are really important, because they come down entirely on personal preference.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think with you saying trailers are sort of not necessarily split the first half, the second half, but it's split into 2 sections.
Yeah, I'm not saying like
the first minute and the second.
the
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Time. I'm just saying like that you can categorize 2 themes within a trip.
It's interesting. I would say there are some trailers which are like, look at this. If you like this, you'll like this. If you don't like this, go away. And they sort of they close down the audience into these are the people we're definitely going to be entertaining. And there are some trailers who try to be like, look, it's got action and romantic comedy and what's her face, Fine Channing Tatum, and the one who I want to call Drew Barrymore.
No, Reese Witherspoon.
Thank you. I knew it was one of those weird named ones.
I'm convinced that the new Avengers film is the best thing on earth. I actually think that there's going to be some kind of mini rapture and a lot of people in the cinema are going to die and they're just going to go up to heaven right there and then because it can't get better. In my head, I'm probably wrong, but you're not going to convince me otherwise until I go and see it. But it is prejudging it based on the other films and directors and people involved with it, and I'm prejudging it, and maybe I'm building up in my head to be too good.
Charlotte, I'm actually friends with Doc Brown, and I've come from the future to tell you that you're in for a disappointment.
No,
it's
please
your
don't.
kids, Marty. Daughter marries a black guy.
Not comfortable hanging out with you anymore, Doc.
It's going to be the best thing ever, all right? There's no way it can't be. And I've prejudged it. And it doesn't matter what other people say. I should probably listen to other people and their opinions. But in this case, good God, back the fuck up.
I have inordinate amounts of hope and trust in Joss Whedon's skill, but that doesn't change the fact that it's going to be a camp, big-budget superhero film with hundreds of people controlling its direction, all pulling in different directions, and somebody on the top just pissing money all over it.
The big problem with it, I can see both sides of it. I really want it to be the best thing before The Hobbit comes out, because that will be the best thing known to man. But I also understand the whole Alex shaking his fist at corporate America side of things. But I think the defining line that comes down to it is it will still never live up to fanboy. Like, it won't live up to their standards. Nothing will ever live up to any of these standards, because these characters have such a deep-rooted, long-term fan base over decades and decades of different generations. There's no way it can ever live up to anything, which is why I'm not letting myself get excited about it, because the more I let myself get excited about it, the more disappointed I will be.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I tried in advance to hear nothing about it, so I wouldn't have an expectation.
Yeah.
But I've already seen all the trailers and read at least 2 preemptive reviews of it, and I can't help myself, but I'm picturing the film version of The Pearly Gates, even with all my hatred. So it's not going to happen.
See,
the trailer came on the television earlier, and it made a little noise. I don't even know where the noise came from, but it was like this. You have no idea how excited I am.
Like,
It's brilliant. It's
This
really
is my
brilliant
bunny.
that hundreds of millions of people around the world are going to make that noise, that wonderful, wonderful noise, and then they're all going to rush out and see the film, and everybody will love it and it'll be great. In an awful situation, everyone will hate it and it will just become lol-worthy. But in what I think is going to happen is it will be somewhere around the 7 to 8 out of 10 mark. It'll be good, but then there'll be a section of society who go and start a campaign to retake the Avengers and get the ending remade. I'm not
Mass
bitter.
Effect.
I'm not bitter about this at all. Fucking BioWare caving.
I think the only way Avengers would live up to our expectations is if Robert Downey Jr.'s opens his Iron Man mask after doing something entirely awesome and then looking away from an explosion, and then every nerd in every cinema just coming in his pants.
And hers.
Oh yes, let's not discriminate.
But yes, yes, the Avengers will be interesting, and I think the minute we've all seen it, we should do a podcast on it, which
Yeah,
will
we
be
need to do that one.
All I will do is make noises. There may be good noises, there may be bad noises, but essentially there will just be noises.
They're going to be orgasm noises.
Even thinking about it now, I just want to chew cushions because it's not here yet and I can't see it. You guys have no idea how excited I am for this film. I don't even understand why I'm so excited for it. I just want to bite things until it's here. I'm so excited.
That's brilliant.
Worse than Christmas.
I think your mind off it by saying something about The Hangover.
The Hangover 3. The Hangover 2 is now officially the most sued film of all time as well. Louis Vuitton sued them.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Mike Tyson sued him because of the tattoo as well.
Yeah.
Didn't it was like his design, wasn't it?
Anyway, we're getting majorly off topic.
I did actually want to say something about The Hangover.
Oh, okay.
Go on.
I was just going to say that I didn't think it was all that, but like halfway through the film, I wanted to see the film because it very rarely was actually a detective story. You don't really get many of those anymore.
I suppose never looked at it that way. A very loosely strung together series of hilarious scenes with some sort of underlying plot. The underlying plot being a detective agency.
It's a comedy film, so it's still tongue-in-cheek, but, you know, it's like, I like detective film.
Just to sort of summarize it, there are some films that I prejudged and it was wrong and I shouldn't have done it, and some films that I prejudged and I was totally right and I didn't like them. And
Good.
then there's the Avengers, and it is going to be like Christmas. It's going to be such a big build-up, and it's probably going to be a disappointment. I'm going to get an empty box again.
But then you're going to play with the empty box and bury a mummy in it. Yeah, you mentioned just then saying things that you've judged and come out right and things that you've judged and come out wrong, things like that. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind if I could share 2 anecdotes with you about 2
That's
films.
why I said it.
2 films. Look at you segueing like a boss. One of which, I'll start chronologically. I watched the trailer for this film and I judged it and I thought, excellent. This is exactly what I've been looking for. This is a correct blend of science fiction with a bit of horror and some action that's going to be right up my street, with a good actor in it and two actors that I'm aware of that are reasonably tolerable. This is going to be great. And I went to the cinema and nothing had even happened in the film yet and I was already pissed off. The titles happened, and then in this science fiction sort of what had the potential to be a really, really good in-depth analogy of an interesting idea, and the very first thing that happened in the film, fucking cat scare. And I was like, right, I'm out. I've clocked out already, and then you have to now work to drag me back Daybreakers all the way back to actually wanting to be in this cinema with you. It was the Spearing Brothers 2009 film Daybreakers with Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe and Sam Neill in it. And I thought, yes, science fiction plus vampires, but Blade-style vampires and all this sort of stuff in a really interesting way of looking at it. And I thought it's going to be smart, it's going to be well acted, because obviously Sam Neill's in it, he's awesome. All about integration in sort of like a Matrix-y style world where humans are farmed and things like that. And nope. It was bland action, full of cliches, loads of cat scares, equilibrium with vampires, basically. Well, the thing that irritated me most about the cat squares, the square
When they line
cats,
cats up and then they're all in a nice shape.
in Daybreakers is the fact that they went, what have we got in this film? We've got bats and we've got Willem Dafoe. Shall we make every single piece of technology and scene change sound like Willem Dafoe? No, let's make it sound like a bat. Which is clearly the worst choice, because it's like the opening scene is like sunset and then this bat just flies at the screen, and then they're in a subway at one point and the car goes past, like subway cart, and it screams like a bat and things like that. I was just like, yawn, this is awful. But
It's like a scene change for a kid's cartoon version of Batman.
pretty much, yeah. But one of the worst parts about it is the sort of the culminating fight, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away. The culminating fight, a supporting character comes valiantly crashing through the door just at the right moment, saves the day. Then they all get in his uber cool looking car and they literally drive into the sunset. Not drive off, they literally are driving down a single road towards a setting sun. And at this point I was like throwing popcorn. I was so outraged that they just like taken all the bag of cliche nails, lined them up nicely and just hammered them squarely in. I was like, this film is godshite awful.
There was no table in front of you, so you flipped the entire audience row in front of you.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually had to get up because there was no one else in the cinema, walk 8 feet to my right, down the stairs and into somebody else's row and bat his popcorn out of his hands. So yeah, that was Daybreakers, and that was just an instance of me judging a film wrongly, me thinking it's going to be brilliant. Well, both these are instances of me judging films wrongly, but this is me judging a film in a positive sense and it letting me down. A film that I judged in a negative sense, but I was actually quite pleased with, is the DJ Caruso film, 2011, based on a series of books. The first film in the series, hopefully, they're going to make more. It's called I Am Number 4. It was starring Alex Pettyfer and Timothy Olyphant. It also had Kevin Durand in it as the villain. But DJ Caruso did Disturbia, which was apparently quite good, but I've not seen it. But I watched a trailer for this, and I went to see it on a date because the person I was with was like, let's go see it, it's got that guy in it, he was fit. I was like, fine.
That's not a good sign.
No, I watched a trailer and I was like, oh, this looks like it's just bouncing off the end of some sort of leftover Twilight / Alex Rider / that sort of empowered teens doing cool things and it being all about the teens and stuff like that. I sat down, watched the film. I was thinking, it's all right. I mean, Timothy Olyphant's in it. I quite like him, and there's a little bit of intrigue, and it's got Diane Agron in it, and she's fitty as fuck, and some stuff's going on. And then it hit the third act. I was like, holy Jesus, mother of fuck, what is happening? This is amazing. And there was some really, really great CGI battles in a school between some hellhounds and these kids who have these awesome powers. And it was like all the good shit that should have been in X-Men First Class, which is teens with powers kicking ass, suddenly rammed into the last half an hour of this film, and it was just a complete like slap across the face. I suddenly woke up, suddenly got interested in this film. I don't remember any of it at this point because this was back in 2011. I don't remember anything what was going on, but I remember they're really, really and interesting me all of a sudden, and I'm really looking forward to the sequels they're hopefully going to make. These sort of battle scenes wouldn't have been out of place in, as I say, X-Men or the Hellboy series, for example, because it was sort of not religiously themed. But do you remember the Samael, the Hellhound from Hellboy 1, the one who duplicates himself? There was like a big fight between Alex Pettyfer's dog, who turns out to be a fucking tank of an alien, and sorry, spoiler, and some other dog, and then there's some. It's really, really good CG, and stuff like that is like porn to me. So yeah, so that was just an instance of me judging a film to be awful, being dragged to see it, and genuinely being very surprised, which I always think is better. It's better to think you're going to see crap and see good things than vis-a-vis Avengers, see something you think is going to be amazing and it unfortunately let you down. I think it's always better to be.
I agree. It's such an amazing feeling to be enjoying a film at the same time as being surprised by its quality. It's basically what watching new films at all, because like it happens so rarely, but I think it's so good that it's worth like the disappointment of things like Spider-Man 3 and such.
The moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen, is keep your hopes at rock bottom, and that way you will never be disappointed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, the most sound advice we will ever probably give on this podcast.
Much like we should all live our lives.
Exactly. When I started dating Ross, I assumed that he was just a talking cushion and that things could really only get better from there, and they did.
Yep.
I just put a couple of wobbly eyes on a potato and then had conversations with it and like mapped out what I thought my life would be like. But no, turned out really well. So good for us.
This is again slightly off topic, but you mentioned Hellboy, and I have a real soft spot for the Hellboy franchise. It's kind of a guilty pleasure because I know they're not all that. The film that I chose that I prejudged to be bad was the remake of The Thing.
Oh right.
Yeah. My expectation was that the film was going to have the exact same storyline as the original, but the only reason to make it was that it had more modern CGI, and that is to say not necessarily better CGI, because the CGI for the original Thing was probably some of the best I have ever seen.
Agreed.
Still this day. And that's like sorry, that's special effects, not CGI, because there is no CGI in The Thing, and that's something which makes it even more amazing.
Even the head with like spider legs crawling around is like stop motion animation.
I'm usually not a fan of horror films, films at all, but the original Thing is like one of my favourite films.
It's not the original, can I point out?
Oh god, here we go.
The original Thing is Halt Who Goes There, or Stop Who Goes There, sorry, the 1940s film.
I've never seen that like original.
The only reason I know that is because it says at the ends of the credits, based on the story, Stop Who Goes There or Halt Who Goes There.
Yeah, but so basically, I thought the whole reason that they were deciding to remake the Thing was to exploit the original, not add anything to it. And it was kind of, my opinions were kind of reinforced when I heard that they were doing a prequel, because that gives them an excuse to recycle the original storyline, because they would have no idea about the alien. So they'd have the discovery and the mystery, and the story could follow the same course as the original.
Just to clarify, sorry, the story is called Who Goes There, and its author is John W. Campbell Jr. And it was published in 1938, and it is also the source material for the 1951 film The Thing from Another World. So there are technically 3 films made from this one text. See, you've already mentioned that you said that the plot wasn't... You watched a trailer and you were thinking the plot's going to be exactly the same as the 1987 Thing film. It might be 82, I'm unsure. Did you think that it was, or did you think that it wasn't?
I actually haven't seen the film.
Oh, okay, my bad. I'll shut up.
Yeah, I know. I was having difficulty finding examples, so I haven't got one for a prejudge that was bad that I have seen to qualify or not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, but, well, why don't you say?
Well, because the storyline is exactly the same.
Oh, right. Okay.
Literally scene by scene.
Wow. Okay. To be fair, though, I didn't pick up any of that from the trailer. That was just what I expected somebody to be making this film to do with it.
By the way, that's not a criticism. I think that was the right thing to do.
Really?
Yeah, because...
Is it good then?
Yeah, I think 2011 Thing film is a good film. But if you compare it to the original, to the John Carpenter's The Thing, I would still prefer to watch the first one.
Okay.
But they are two.
Okay.
They're both reasonably good films. I think you can't really change the story much, considering as it is based on literally the same circumstances, just in a different location.
Yeah.
There isn't really very many ways that it could have played out differently if it were to happen in reality. So I think they did well to just effectively remake the same film.
I think something like this would probably only come out in fan fiction, but because of its imitating properties and the aliens imitating properties, and its reproduces so quickly, if it does actually get out of isolation and a war between the whole of humanity and the Thing starts to occur, they could make sort of a Skynet post-apocalyptic war type scenario film.
Yes, true.
With
maybe the Thing 2. As long as Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in it, I'll be fine.
Yeah, so that was that. And an example of a surprise, which I was so happy about, was the remake of Star Trek.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're talking about 2009 Chris Pine film, yeah?
Yeah, because basically I had no idea what they were going to do with that, because they were rebooting something from which the characters were completely outdated. So on the face of it, it seems like it wouldn't work with a modern audience at all.
Yeah.
But not only that, when they're dealing with characters which are so popular, I didn't think there was any way that they could recreate the characters to be beloved, to be close to the original enough to still be beloved, but different enough to still be interesting. And yet the film disproved me on all accounts. Didn't survive just by piggybacking on the original series. There were only like occasional nods or allusions to it, done in a really good way that didn't consume the film. And the core of the film was new and interesting. So that
definitely.
was really good.
I did like the fact that the storyline was original. I would say though, I really enjoyed the film, and I'm looking forward to the sequel. And I was very happy Zachary Quinto was in it, because I did love him in Heroes, and I thought he did a great job as Spock. Also, obviously Simon Pegg and Carl Urban were also really good casting choices, I thought.
Yeah.
But it very much probably made. Well, I say probably. In my understanding and in my experience, people who I've talked to about this film, the people who like it are the people who like modern action films, modern science fiction epics, things like that. The people who dislike it are hardcore Star Trek fans.
Really?
Yeah.
But what is going to make them happy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same reason I was talking about Avengers. I think it's the same situation. People who like us, who are cinema goers, not if I can cut you out for just a second, Charlotte, you being, comic book fan, Avengers fan, making squee noises.
Yeah, but it's not like she never goes to the cinema.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Charlotte is one step further down the line of being a fan.
Oh, I see.
One step further down the nerdery.
Pretty much. Down you go, Alice. Down you go. Like Alex and I, we played some of the games, we read some of the comics, watched some of the animated TV shows, and we like the modern films. But take Charlotte and then take like 4 steps further, down into their parents' basement, walls plastered with the comic books and things like that, knows all the intricacies.
Where do you think I am now?
In the comic vault. It's like we enjoy it because it's a cool looking film, it's well acted, well directed, things like that. The neckbeards may take issue with it because it's not canon, if it isn't. That's what I'm saying. And that they've been quite a few people have said the new Star Trek film is mediocre at best because of a lot of the things aren't canon. But then again, they probably just want, Kirk running around in a low-cut V-neck top. If you look at some of the uniforms, they were awful. Punching out Andorans and sexing six-armed, eight-breasted women.
That was another thing that I really liked about it, about the new film, because you were able to say to someone who had never seen any Star Trek, you might just like this film, because not only is it a standalone story, but it's a standalone story as well as having ties that aren't entirely necessary but can still be appreciated.
Yeah, it hits straight down the middle between the two, between making a good blockbuster and making a Star Trek film, which is why it did so well. Usually
when that happens, you miss both, but somehow it managed to do both well. That was what's impressive about it.
Exactly, and everyone's crossing all parts of their body for Avengers doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting Chris Hemsworth was Chris Pine's father.
Oh, wow.
Star Trek. He's either his... Yeah, he is his father.
That's a good, cameo to have relatively soon in your career.
Woman Out of House was his mother, so.
Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, yeah, that was weird. There's kind of a downside to, the original Star Trek series. It's never going to get any new fans. Because it's entirely outdated and not...
Well, I mean, I've just watched my way through all of Voyager. I'm watching my way through all of DS9 at the moment. After that, I'm going to watch my way through Next Generation, and then the original series, and then Enterprise, because I'm going reverse chronological. So I will become a fan of the original series, because I will get that.
That's because you were already aware of Star
Trek. Yeah. I was aware of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I just think, if you've seen Star Trek since being before a certain age.
I can see what you mean, actually, now.
And another thing I liked about it, actually, is that the story mechanic about it being up to a certain point the same Star Trek timeline and then splitting, creating an entirely different timeline, satisfied so many sort of nerdy paradoxes that with a genuinely good reason that I was so pleased that they did that.
It took me so long to spot that it was Eric Bana as the villain as well.
Yeah.
It's just
he looked
ridiculous.
Weird when he's bald.
Yeah, just like it took me up until somebody pointed out to me that Ron Perlman was in Star Trek Nemesis.
Ron Perlman? Who was Ron Perlman?
He was Shinzon. Shinzon's the Riemann? There was the clone, and then there was the Riemann guard who were doing all the psychic shit.
No way was that Ron Perlman.
Check that shit out.
Wow. Good job, Ron. Anyway,
not good job, Ron.
Well, I like Ron Perlman, but that might just be because of Hellboy, I must admit. Anyway, just very quickly, I wanted to end on a high note. My preconceptions about Iron Man upon seeing the trailer, so impressed, and the film delivered on every account.
My world has just been cut in two. Do you know who plays Shinzon in Star Trek Nemesis, as in the clone?
Yeah,
Tom Hardy.
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't look a thing like him, does it?
What the actual fuck just happened to my life?
It looks like some kind of test tube baby, and then he appears in Inception as Liquid Suave.
Wonderful. All right, well that was episode 5, and do make sure to follow us on Facebook, follow me on my Twitter account, it's @Rossage99. Subscribe to us via iTunes, so you can get our regular updates downloaded, and all of our other contributions to the wonderful mixing pot that is the internet will be in our favourite links on the podcast website on the little right hand side, so there's a couple of blogs for you to look at. I've been Ross, and thank you very much for listening. Alex, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, dear listeners.
Charlotte?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.